What is up, folks? Here we are, TCR Live on Thursday, where we just have some general conversation about Cardinals. If mock draft Monday, if you haven't joined that, is a lot of fun. On Monday we talk mock drafts, and then Thursday right now is kind of where we're talking more general offseason stuff, whether it be free agency or other things. I'm joined, as always, by Aarron Van Buren. Kyler Burd has taken the night off. Aarron, how are you doing today, man?
I'm great, and it's always, like I said, every time it's a highlight of my week. It's great to talk with Cardinals fans, as you and I are geographically not around other Cardinals fans. So this is the place to be Thursday night.
Yeah, well, I always enjoy hanging out with you and Kyler when he's able to make it. And, I like to call us the Cardinals diaspora, right? We're kind of distributed out about the country. So, a lot of times, we kind of plan out what we're going to talk about. We DM through the week, like, okay, let's talk about this. And admittedly, this week, we weren't sure what we're going to talk about. And the universe had its own ideas because, sometimes news just kind of pops up, and whether you want to talk about it or not, you're going to be talking about a thing. And, we're going to have to address in somewhere the news with the Steve Wilkes, lawsuit. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. We also want to talk about kind of looking ahead to the draft. We don't want it to be a whole session just talking about that news. But I think we would be derelict of our duties if we didn't at least address it at some point. Want to say, hey, we got Nick here. Appreciate Nick being here. He's also regularly on Mock Draft Monday. He is the banner carrier for Ty Chandler, the running back out of North Carolina. And listen, he's got a lot of us convinced Ty Chandler looks like he could be a good late round pick. Got Moore's legacy. Any news on Darrell Williams? So and that's a good question. Darrell Williams was a running back formerly of the Chiefs who, had a meeting with the Cardinals. Haven't heard any news in terms of a signing. If they were to sign him, I think it'd be a really nice, pickup, in terms of replacing, Chase Edmonds has a lot of similar skill sets. We D's nuts here, even though I'm late. But thoughts on Bobby signing with Rams? It's a huge pickup. Listen, middle linebacker, in my opinion, and I'm not a Rams analyst by any stretch. I don't follow them as closely, but division rival. In my opinion, middle linebacker was one of the spots on that roster where there's an opportunity for improvement. So Bobby Wagner for the Rams is a really nice pickup, in my opinion. It's an area where I think they had, from my perspective, a need. What do you think about that, Aarron?
Well, and then they traded their starting middle linebacker to get Von Miller in the first place.
Yeah.
So if you went from, I think it was Kenny Young to Bobby Wagner, I mean, you can't really get much better than that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. So it's a good signing for them for sure, in an area of need. But haven't heard any news on Darrell Williams. If they sign him, I think that'll be a nice pickup. We'll see what's going on. I think there's a spot in that running back room that could be filled, whether it's from the draft or from free agency. Moore's legacy. Whenever I see your tweets, it's about Wordle. Yeah, I'm one of those Wordle people. So
I have never played that game.
It's fun. It's a word game, and I like to do that.
Is that this generation's like word search or crossword?
Maybe, or it's an interesting thing. I know it's totally off topic from Cardinals, but the main website where that really is done is New York Times. It's a daily puzzle. You can do it once a day. There's a new puzzle pops up at midnight. So there's that sort of design scarcity where you can only play it once a day, kind of makes it kind of interesting. So it's certainly like a digital crossword, except it's quicker and it's one puzzle. Anyway, I know this isn't a Wordle live stream, but yeah. Let's see. Now I'm seeing Dante Hightower. What's also
He's
Dante
still in the league?
I think he is, right. He was. So I'm not sure Dakota, please do us a favor and just let us know what about Dante Hightower. What is it we're saying about him? But and then a whole other topic. Did you hear about what Deebo Samuel, what happened with him? Oh, I think Aarron, are you frozen? I think Aaron's camera is frozen. Hopefully it's on my end. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Yep.
The Deebo. Sorry, I think you froze further. Did you?
I did.
So okay. Did you hear about the Deebo Samuel thing?
I did, and it's interesting now. I think the thing is like we always have to take these things with a grain of salt because he could come out around the corner like Kyler Murray did, be like, oh no, man, this is just how kids talk nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing that's interesting to note, and this is just what I've heard, and my older brother is a Dolphins fan, and there's been rumors about him maybe like being in Miami and to follow Mike McDaniel, maybe the fact that the Niners didn't keep him. I don't know. Don't quote me on this. This isn't exact, but that's just the rumblings I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you imagine a receiving core with Deebo Samuel and Tyreek Hill. I mean, that's dangerous.
Yeah, that would be really dangerous. Yeah, I mean, I did hear about this. In fact, I have, there's a couple 49ers content creators that, I've kind of gotten to know a little bit and done collaborations with them. And there's one, Jay in the Bay, who sometimes pops in here and says, hey, really good dude, doing a live stream with him Sunday on his channel. So he messaged me and he's like, hey, did you hear Deebo's pulling a Kyler? And it's like, and I saw a few comments and tweets, and yeah, when Kyler scrubbed his Instagram, my response was not to overreact. Like, well, maybe this means something, but sometimes people do just clean sweep their Instagrams to start for a new year. Maybe it was for leverage, but that doesn't necessarily, like, even at that, like, sometimes they're just negotiating tactics that aren't as salty as people think they are. It's just how you posture, you position, you create leverage, and you negotiate, and that's just business. And in this generation that's coming up, social media presence and creating doing those kinds of things is intended to put pressure on the organization. And I think sometimes we as fans look at that and think, oh, this guy's salty, he's angry, he's never going to want to play there again. And sometimes it's like they're not salty, they're just like, they've reached out, had their agent reach out, they want an extension, the team said not yet, and then they said, okay, well, it's time to start putting on pressure so that we can get what we want. And it's not always angry or vicious or salty. Sometimes it's just business, so I don't overreact, but I do think it seems like when you see that, there's a good possibility to sign that there's something going on in terms of a contract that the player wants, and he probably wants an extension, early. So I know that's my take. Did you have any thoughts on that? I know you already kind of, I guess, mentioned some of your thoughts, but anything you want to add to that?
I mean, I guess, what would be the root of it? I wouldn't know what it is. I mean, it's not like Deebo Samuel didn't perform in the playoffs like Kyler Murray happened. Deebo Samuel literally carried the team and literally limped off the field in Green Bay.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we gotta freeze up for a second. So Aaron's having a little bit of kind of lag issues, I think. He'll probably pop up here in a second. So let's see. And we real quick as a follow-up, Dakota said, as far as Aaron's saying he's lagging. Sorry, we'll get him back in here a second. Dante Hightower, free agent. Okay, still there, free agent there. Okay. I don't know if he's still free agent that maybe the Rams looking at. I don't know. All right, let's see. Let's kind of get on a couple of these questions, and when Aaron gets back, we can pop back to him. Let's see. So we've got a couple of things, but yeah, I think the Deebo thing is he wants the contract extension and he's maybe starting to press for it, but I think that's just how the business is done. Underscore NFL says a private workout Cardinal scouts attended. Chris, I'm not going to try to pronounce it. Quarterback South Dakota State. Did y'all read up on that? Cardinals also attended Malik Willis. Is this just due diligence? That's a really good question. Cause I saw the Malik Willis one, and that, at least raised an eyebrow for me because, wondering about why, in terms of a late round, a quarterback who might be late round, that's less of an eyebrow raise. But, Malik Willis is projected to be a first-round quarterback and potentially the first quarterback off the board. So, with the Cardinals having a meeting with him, why would they do that? You wonder. My thoughts on that are a couple things. One, I think with the stuff that was going on with Kyler, in terms of they're like, okay, there's a negotiation here, potentially coming, or whatever's going on behind the scenes. Clearly, Kyler does want a contract extension. Clearly, the Cardinals have not yet given it to him. So I think with that, I think the Cardinals probably were doing due diligence in sort of having a backup plan in case things go nuclear with Kyler. We're talking about their visit, that they attended Malik Willis. I don't think that they are active. I don't think it means the Cardinals are, planning to trade Kyler and that they're actively planning to replace him. I think they really want to commit to Kyler, but I think with the way things were going, they probably just wanted to have a backup plan in place that, okay, if Kyler thing goes nuclear and we have to, and he decides he's going to hold out and then we have to trade him or something, we've met with this quarterback who we could draft. I think that it was due diligence. And then I'll get to you in a second. I know you want to jump in here, Aarron. And I think also sometimes teams, team player personnel scouting is not something that just ends at the draft. Like teams continue to scout players when they're in their pros, and they keep reports on players from the draft process and then other scouting, so that down the road, when free agency comes around, if there's a player they might be interested in, they've got kind of a file on them, if that makes sense. And it's like a lot of the players that they're signing right now as free agents are players that they liked in the draft process. So sometimes you just do due diligence on a player coming out with the idea that, hey, you know what, we never know. Maybe 4 years from now, we're in a position where we have to sign a free agent quarterback and Malik Willis happens to be, available, whether it's as a backup or as a starter. He's got a skill set we like. So sometimes there's just that. But Aarron, welcome back. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, thanks. Apparently tonight's the technological issues night for me. But I mean, the other thing is along with the due diligence is that, a good team will still find these talented quarterbacks, put them on their roster in some sort of capacity, and whether they trade them or they put a tender on them some sort of way, they get something for them. Most cases, look at the Packers and the Patriots, the last 20 years. I mean,
Andy Reid used to do that when he was with the Eagles too, because Kevin Cobb, we know this.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and how many, we remember when, Matt Flynn was going to be the Seahawks starting quarterback and then Russell Wilson, happened.
Jacoby Brissett, the Patriots traded him.
Garoppolo,
there's a long list of those guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Brian Hoyer, who's somehow still in the league. And it just goes on and on. So that's one way that they could do it. Also, and this is kind of my personal note, they're scouting the wrong Big Sky quarterback.
Okay.
They should have done an interview with Eric Barrier, I think that's how you pronounce it, of Eastern Washington. The guy went from a 2,500-yard season in 2020 to throwing over 5,000 yards this year, including a 600-yard, 8-touchdown game against Idaho. And the guy can sling the rock. He got them to a FCS championship appearance. And I don't know why he's not being talked about more. I've been very high on him for a long time. They didn't make a lot of noise in the playoffs because they lost in the playoffs I think it was to Montana State. They lost a 57-41 game. And the guy threw for like 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. So I'm really high on that guy. So that's what I would say. But I wouldn't really worry about Malik Willis or anybody. Hey.
Yeah, Grandizer with the assist here. And I think like a late round projected undrafted free agent, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, they're going to want to look at potential camp bodies, and someone maybe as a practice squad undrafted free agent. So that, meeting with those guys makes plenty of sense. Malik Willis was the one that raised an eyebrow, but because of where he's projected to go. So yeah, for sure. Let's see. want to go through here. Then talking about also, and this leads to something that I think I also kind of wanted to talk about maybe a little bit. Cardinals going to Derek Stingley's pro day. Derek Stingley is likely to be long gone before the Cardinals pick. That's another one of those players. Like, the only way they're getting him is trading up. And there's been some talk that they were maybe considering trading up. So, a lot of the talk I heard was that they were looking to trade up for an edge rusher, but then now you start to hear Trent McDuffie as a player. Like, they went to Stingley's pro day, apparently. What are your thoughts on the Cardinals trading up? Do you think they will? Do you think they should? And if they do, what positions do you think that they would or should trade up for?
Well, with them, it's you try to get as much exposure to these players with your scouts. Those Dolphins people know good quarterbacks. I'm not saying everybody, the guy from South Dakota State isn't good, but anyways, I digress. Yeah. But you want to make sure that should this player somehow magically fall to you in the draft, that you have a profile on him. Little factoid here: Stingley Jr.'s dad was the player that was paralyzed on Monday Night Football back in '88 by the Raiders, George Atkinson, I believe.
Oh wow!
And so there is an NFL bloodline there, and so that's probably why they another reason why they went. But in terms of trading up, I guess it's really a wild card, because I know they're the only teams I've really heard that could be willing to trade a pick are within the top 10, and I don't think we're ever going to go that far, unless there's someone who is just slam dunk there that's on their board that they feel threatened, he's not going to be there. But I guess they would trade up to get a star wide receiver. And to me, I mean, I still think Treylon Burks is the guy if they were to do that. Long gazelle-like strides, able to stretch the field, and Hopkins can work those deep crossing routes that work so well for him in Houston. And and maybe if Rondale Moore can just be the little scat back wide receiver, shallow, give him the ball and let him yak. I mean, it could be something cool to have. And this is probably the first year in a long time that I would be okay with a wide receiver in the first round.
Yeah, I think there's a couple different types of trade up scenarios that you have to consider here, because, I think there's the trading way up to target a guy that you want, where you're giving up like next year's first round pick, probably, to do that, like going in the top 10. That's like that really like just all in kind of trade up. And if you're doing that, you're targeting a guy, right? Like Derek Stingley, or maybe one of the top edge rushers. So if they're trading up and mortgaging next year's, first round pick to do that, it's for a guy, right? But then there's also a couple other trades I see that are possible in terms of if they were to trade up. There's also what I would call the opportunist trade up, where it's like what you're saying. If a guy slides, like, let's say like a guy like Stingley, I think is like, unless there's an injury or an off the field thing that pops up last minute,
Tunsil.
Unexpected. Yeah. Tunsil, if he gets tunsled. And I'm not trying to say anything about Stingley that would, but if something like that happened, other than that, and even with that, Tunsil didn't fall that far, right? So Stingley's not falling to the Cardinals, but if he slides a little bit, if we start getting to pick 12 and 14 and he's still on the board, the Cardinals, I could see them saying, we have to move up to get this guy because he slipped far enough that the price for moving up has gone down. And a lot of times, like, teams, when they're planning, like, I think sometimes some fans don't realize teams don't just target a guy. They set up a ton of contingencies, scenarios, and they mock them out and play them out. What happens if this happens? What happens if this happens? So I could see a scenario where they've sat in their war room and they said, okay, if Stingley falls to this point with this team here, we think we can make a trade with them giving up this, this, and this, and we're doing it. So I think part of that is planning. That could be the kind of thing. And then the third kind of trade up scenario is what I think they would do if they're going after a receiver. And what I think is that's a short jump, like moving up like 3 or 4 spots.
Yeah, like
because they're
Saints
like
or some.
Yeah, because there's like 5 receivers that all, are 5 receivers or so that are supposed to be really the top receivers. And there's a chance they could all be gone before the Cardinals pick because of the teams that need receivers. So let's say, Drake London, and Olave and the other guy in Ohio, my brain's
Garrett Wilson.
And let's say those guys are all off the board. Jamison Williams off the board, and the last guy on the board of those receivers is Treylon Burks. And one of those teams that needs a receiver is about to take him. The Cardinals might jump up 3 or 4 spots to get them, right? So that's another scenario where I could see it happening.
And with you listing about receivers being off the board, it kind of reminded me of, for those of you who do fantasy football, in your fantasy football drafts, you've been in those runs where it's just, especially in the first round where it's running back, and then you'll have like your Kelseys and the quarterback sprinkled in. But like it's during those times that, while everyone, obviously real life is different than fantasy football, but it's during those times when those runs are happening that you may be able to get the player that you really want, while everybody else is fixated on like, oh, well, we need a wide receiver, so the Packers are trying to move up, or the Chiefs are too. But if you sit right there and it falls you, it's just like that. I don't know, it just came to me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Sometimes when everyone's fixated on a position, maybe you don't get that you have to go in a different direction. But listen, even to go back, Patrick Peterson fell to the Cardinals at 5th overall when a lot of people thought he was the best player in the draft. And I know there's, the history that's gone on with him has been mixed, but like Cardinals had sat there at 5 and other people were going after quarterbacks and other positions, and a player that a lot of people thought, so that happens sometimes. Chaser Alex saying, asking, what do you think we'd give to move up? It depends on how far you go. Like if you're going from 23 to the top 10, we're giving our first round this year, our first round next year, and probably a second somewhere.
Yeah. If
we're moving up into the teens, we're giving up this year's first and either a couple seconds or maybe a first and getting back something. There's a whole formula for that, right? If we're moving up 3 or 4 spots, we're giving up our first and probably third, maybe a future second. It just depends how far you're moving up, right?
Right. And it also depends on which team it is, because there are GMs who are more inclined to trading back than others. And so whoever those are, which I don't really think there are any in the mid-teens, the only people I can name off the top of my head that like to trade back are the Seahawks and the Packers, and maybe the Patriots too, but I don't even know if they have a pick.
Yeah. And Grant Ezra's making the point that you were making earlier, right? If all those receivers are gone, and that's why I'm not as locked into receiver in the first round as everyone else is. If one of those good receivers is there, I'm all for it. But I'm not necessarily all about moving up, because if all those good receivers fall off the board, that means either a good cornerback or someone like Devontae Wyatt falls to us that I also like a lot. So, that's definitely kind of, how I look at it. Let's see, underscores talking about here with Cooper Kupp CFL playing inside outside motion, Deebo Samuel creating new position, the wide back. Could someone like Dax Hill be a possibility? Secondary versatility, cornerback safety, versatility is new gold in the NFL. I mean, I think there are teams that are going to go after that. I don't know that Dax Hill or safety is a position I'd look at, although the Cardinals were looking at Petrie from Baylor, who some people see as a little bit like that. What do you think about that? About that question comment?
I know where you want to go with that underscore, because it's, those guys are so polarizing. They make a huge impact. But how many of those players do you find in the draft? I mean, Deebo Samuel was like a 3rd or 4th round pick or something like that. Maybe 2nd. I don't know. But he definitely wasn't in the 1st round where he was projected to go, or at least to some people. And, that happened. And so when you can find guys like that, it's great. But it also takes a scheme. It's just not, this one guy could be, the next Cordell Stewart, and you could play him, wherever in college, but you put him in the league and then he just flops. Not saying Cordell Stewart really flopped, but I just think that's hard and to ask one guy to play multiple positions. There's a reason why you don't see two-way players anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, the physical demands of this sport are way more than I would say than they were back in the 60s, aside of just playing every single play. I mean, everything is just higher and higher and higher.
Yeah. I mean, I think Samuel's probably been one of the most successful, versatile players in the, in terms of recently, but like, there's a little bit of that with your hybrid safeties and slot corners, but I don't know. I think a lot of times those kinds of situations those players struggle to find a home sometimes, in terms of their spots. So
yeah,
I don't know.
And then I can't even remember the last time there was a cornerback safety off the top of my head. And, safety, as much as I personally don't like Jalen Thompson, and I can say that because Kyler is not on the stream tonight.
Oh, I like Jalen Thompson, so I think you and I know.
Okay, well, we're going to butt heads. But I just, the safety position is fine. Now, if someone like that was still on the board, second, maybe early third, fine, take it, build, keep them as an extra pick, and then maybe trade them like Tay Gowan got traded in the season.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's what it takes to land a Zach Ertz, then you'll do that every time.
Yeah.
But let me just go back up and see that comment one more time. Underscores. One? Yeah. And I got to admit, I still haven't gotten to Dax Hill in my draft evaluation. So
I haven't looked at the safeties much either. And a lot of that is because, I mean, I know where roughly he's kind of a late first round, kind of early second round player, nice player. I don't see safety at all being a position the Cardinals take before day 3 at all. I mean, listen, they zig when we think they're going to zag, so they might prove me wrong. It would be utter hubris on my part to assume I know this. I just don't think it's happening. Real quick, I just want to say hey to some of the folks who aren't here. Got Lance, who's a really great, great dude who supports the channel. What's up, gents? Appreciate you being here. Jordan, and Jordan P popped in, and I generally agree with Jordan P too. He likes a lot of the tier 2 wide receivers in this draft. He'd rather take defensive line, edge, or offensive guard that falls than to reach for a tier 2 receiver early. And I'm just not as panicked about the receivers as a lot of fans are, because they need another receiver on the roster, whether that's AJ Green coming back, and I know a lot of people don't like that, or someone like him, or to draft a guy later Julio to compete, or Julio, they need another receiver, but I don't think it's as dire as people think. Or at minimum, you don't have to take one early, in my opinion. So I like guys like Dubs in the potentially in the third round, or Pierce or Christian Watson, those guys in second round potentially. So yeah, I don't want to reach for wide receiver either in the first round. If one of the good ones falls to us, sure. So I generally agree with that, right? Real quick, I want to say hey to a couple other folks. We got Mr. Mono in here. Get an edge DL and then trade it for a wide receiver like Pickens. I don't hate that, right? Payo Time, appreciate you being here. Zach, question: if a girl you've been dating for a month invites you to a +1 at her cousin's wedding that is day 3 of the NFL draft, do you go asking for a friend? Well, we're both married. I'll tell you what, day 3, I'll pass in day 3. I will tell you this. Going back to when I was engaged to get married, okay, we were living in Arizona at the time, living in the Phoenix area. We were getting married up in Flagstaff, and we had to drive up to meet with like the florist and all the other, all the things and people to set up for our wedding. And my wife's, my mother-in-law came into town, and my wife scheduled that trip for the draft weekend. So I'm up in Flagstaff. Now this is, like 17 years ago, because I'm old, but this was like, I'm sitting in the car listening to the radio while my wife and mother-in-law are talking to the florist, because I'm like, yeah, whatever you pick is good. I don't care. As far as the flowers go, I trust your judgment. And I'm sitting in the car listening to the draft. So on day 3, though,
Yeah, I would do it.
I'd do it on day 3.
Because day 3, I mean, before you know it, you're just scrolling on your phone half the time.
Yeah.
I mean, the only really thing that happens on day 3 is like who's Mr. Irrelevant, and you get to see the cool triple digit jersey, but that's really it.
Now, I will say though, like, okay, we have like 5 picks, I think, on day 3. And if you're the Rams, that's almost the entirety of your draft because you trade away those early picks, right?
Okay.
So you're basically missing the whole draft there, right? So
now that's tough. Now I know why he asked the question.
Yeah. So let me say hey to a couple other folks that are in here real quick. Jacob Fisher, thank you for being here. Mitchie in the second is a great value. That's another player I think that people talk about, as a possibility. I think we have another frozen Aaron real quick. And then yo boy Pizzazz, trade Kyler for Malik Willis. I'm not doing that, but to each their own opinion. Oh, hey, let's see. Oops. Thank you. 12 years. Hey, listen, you've made it to 12 years. That's a good point. So, to make it to, and thanks. I appreciate that, Lance. Let's see. Let's get a couple other comments in here. Jordan Peace and Alec Pierce, Christian Watson, George Pickens, Khalil Shakir are really nice prospects to me. I agree. Like, I think one or more of those guys are going to be there at 55, and I don't hate that, right? I'm definitely kind of on that, kind of in that range. 6 of our 8 picks are day 3. Yes, you're practically missing the draft, right? Kayvon Thibodeau is a good player. I don't think he'll be there anywhere near when we pick. Let's see. We're good with edge in second or third round. Yeah, and I think second round is a really good place to get edge because I think there's gonna be a lot of good ones that are still there. So I maybe, if a receiver doesn't go at the first round, I think there's gonna be some guys in third round that I don't mind. What do you think about Josh Paschal, mid-round edge defensive end who's really under? Yeah, Jordan, I'll tell you what, that's a guy I actually really like. I believe he's from Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, on Mock Draft Mondays and some of the earlier editions, he was a guy I picked very often. To me, he's a guy, I don't think he's a 10 sack kind of a guy, although you never know, but he does remind me of, like, he's that guy who's really good against the run, a little bit more of a power rusher, but he can give you a little something in pass rush. And to get a guy like that, if you can get him in let's say the third round, perhaps, I really like him. He reminds me a little bit, a really good, insane run defender. To me, I've made this comparison before. He reminds me a little bit of Trey Flowers, longtime Patriot and Lion, who's just like one of those Bill Belichick, solid defense, solid in defending the run, gives you a little bit of pass rush. But I think that as a pick in round 3, I really like. So, that would be a player I would not mind seeing the Cardinals pick up. Let's see. So what are your thoughts on the receivers, the day 2 receivers, Aaron? How do you feel about the receivers on? And yes, Trey Flowers was cut, so he's a guy that who knows, maybe we end up signing him instead. But what are your thoughts on the receivers that are like the day 2 receivers?
Well, I think probably the best, and maybe I'm with the consensus here. Christian Watson seems to be the guy that would probably get the most attention. Kind of be like the kind of a similar Asante Samuel Jr. Kind of slide or rush, where people are just like, this guy's still on the board, and how does he keep falling? And then the Chargers magically get him. And then if John Mechie does fall, because I think he also got hurt. If you can get that guy healthy for when it matters, then it's really going to be a game changer in your offense that people aren't going to be ready for. So past that point, I haven't done too much other looking at that.
Let's see. We've got a question here. Who do you like at 23? I'm guessing overall, if not a wide receiver, and we can get an edge. Okay, so like for me, like if at number 23 for me, it's all about who falls to us. Is it a player that I didn't expect to be there? And if one of those players doesn't fall to us, then I want to kind of trade back and add some picks. That's me. But some players that I personally would love to see fall to the Cardinals at 23. If someone like Jermaine Johnson, one of the top edge rushers somehow slips to us, then I would love that. Devontae Wyatt, I'd be pretty excited if he fell to us. Jamison Williams, I'd be pretty excited about. I think Jordan Davis.
Yes.
I'm not as I think Traylon Burks is a nice player and I think he'll be good. I'm just not as excited as everyone else is about him, but I'm sure he'll be good. Those are some of the players. Those are some of the players I'd look at. Who are you like at 23, if not a wide receiver? Who are you kind of most interested in?
I love Kenyon Green. I've been on the Kenyon Green hype train for a long time. Great guard and something that Cardinals do need. And then, this, I think I said this on the last week. If we didn't pick Collins last year, I would take Nakobe Dean over Collins any day of the week. Just because how cerebral that guy is, and he's a leader on the defense and the vocal leader, which the Cardinals don't have one. Buda tries his best, but Buda, you're a safety, and unless you're coming in with almost like a Cam Chancellor performance with a Richard Sherman kind of attitude, it's not going to be there. And that's just not. Buda's a great guy, but he's not either of those guys. Mm-hmm. And then I would I guess I'm really biased here, but I would take Linderbaum because offensive lineman. But it's there. And then cat got my tongue, I guess, tonight.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, and then people talk about Green, his stock has been falling while Zion Johnson's been rising, and Green had a little bit of a disappointing combine. It wasn't the worst, but people wanted to see better from him. So I think he's a guy who there's a good chance he'll be there. Maybe Cliff might have scouted him, recruited him to A&M. So that's a distinct possibility. Kenyon Green is a guy we're not talking about a lot. And his stock has gone down. And personally, I would rather have Zion Johnson. I think there's bigger upside there because of the physicality. But would it shock me, if the Cardinals, picked him? Not at all, right? Let's see. I want to. There's, and kind of we were talking about this before the show, and this is kind of building on this question or this line of conversation. The positions that we've all been talking about at number 23 have been receiver, edge rusher, guard, and defensive tackle, right? Those are the positions we're talking about at number 23 over and over again, and myself included, as the most likely positions. So, the question that we were talking about before show is if like we said, the Cardinals and Steve Keim, they like to zig when we think they're going to zag, right? And if last year, a few people saw Zaven Collins. I mean, there were a couple of people that were mocking Zaven Collins to the Cardinals in the week before the draft. I read a couple of those. In fact, my video that I did on what players are going to be available, he was one of like 3 or 4 players I had listed that are a possibility that the Cardinals might be taking. But we all were thinking cornerback last year for the most part. And they went middle linebacker after drafting a year, and we all know the story. All jokes aside, I don't think they're doing middle linebacker again. Watch the universe punish me for saying that. But if the Cardinals don't go one of those 4 positions we all seem to think are the positions they're going: edge, wide receiver, defensive tackle, and guard, what positions do they take if they don't go one of those positions in the first round? And folks in the chat, let us know what positions you think they would take if it's not one of those 4. Aarron, what do you think? What positions, and maybe even some players, you could see them taking if it's not one of those positions?
I mean, they may pull the 98 New York Jets and draft a tight end.
Okay.
Zach Ertz is, yeah, he just signed an extension, but then Max Williams, he hasn't. I don't know how healthy he's really been. Minus last year, of course, he got hurt. But it could be the one position that would come out of nowhere. I would say I gotta just refresh my mind on the tight end.
I'd say
Like,
McBride is probably if there's one that's going that early, it's McBride. And I think he's more likely second round, but yeah.
Right. And so I think that would be it. Because, Arizona's for tight ends has sucked forever. And Kyler did a great video on it. Once again, go watch that video, everybody. It's really eye-opening just to show you how desolate the tight end position has been for Arizona. And it could just be another new wrinkle that's in Cliff's offense. Maybe they're running more 12 personnel, and and then later in the draft they draft a scat running back who can catch out of the backfield. And so that way you can give the illusion that you're running, but in reality you're passing, which is the Cardinals' strength.
Yeah. I think the most obvious answer, a couple of folks jumped in real quick, Chris Young, cornerback. We didn't, that's not one of the four positions, cornerback for sure. They're working a lot of corners lately. They just worked out stingly. And I would say that is the position, the most likely position. That's not one of those four that they would go. I think I don't think tight end is super likely, but you never know, right? Absolutely true. Zigzag all day. Simmons Faldos was great. Murphy was good cornerback along with Marco. I don't think tight end. I think cornerback, linebacker, edge, center's possibility. I've been on the side that says don't draft a center until day 3 because I don't. But I could totally see them doing that. I think running back's another possibility. I don't like taking running backs in the first round, but that's another position.
I do.
What's that?
I do.
I
would do it.
Yeah. So maybe they do. So I think to me, it seems like, cornerback, running back, maybe center, maybe tackle. As much as I don't think I think they need to go interior offensive line, but it wouldn't shock me if they went with a tackle looking towards the future, if someone fell to them that they liked. Real quick underscore. Yeah, we were actually talking about Josh Paschal earlier. So maybe that might have been just before you came in. I think he's a great player to look at on day 2. I really like him. James Cook. Hello, NFL. The NFL's here. Wow.
Who the hell was that?
Huh?
Who the hell is James Cook?
Dalvin Cook's brother.
Oh,
the running back out of Georgia. Yeah. We haven't been, so I will tell you, James Cook is like a round 3 kind of guy, probably. And I think to me, he's the running back in the draft I think is the best fit for what the Cardinals need. I don't think they're going to take him. I mean, who knows? But I'm more like a go day 3 with the running back. So I guess I don't really. I've had him in a few of my mocks, but like natural pass catcher, we've talked about him in here before. Yeah. You saw another podcast saying James Cook number 3. Yeah, 23. No, you're taking him at earliest round 2 and more likely round 3. But he's I love him as a fit, right? So, let's see.
I agree with Lance.
Let's see. It's a very tricky offseason draft. Hard to predict. Absolutely. I mean, I'm looking at this feeling the same thing for sure. Let's see. Daryl Gray saying, I don't think they have no choice but to trade for Jermaine Johnson. Makes most sense. I think they have a choice, but listen, if Jermaine Johnson is a really good player, I wouldn't hate it if they got him. I just think it's a deep edge class. I think they have a choice, but if they trade up, I could see them trading up for him. Nick is Ty Chandler's better. Nick's the 3 things are sure in life. Death, taxes, and Nick loving Ty Chandler, right? No, and listen, he's a good. I take Ty Chandler a lot in my mock drafts. Jordan P's on my side in terms of running backs in first situation. We won't rehash this debate. We've had it before. Cornerback would be better picker. I don't want corner this year, although I do really like McDuffie, and we're linked to him. I think McDuffie will be gone long before we pick.
I don't I can see why teams would like McDuffie, but I don't know if he's fit for the NFC West.
Okay. Yeah,
I
I don't
don't I
know.
don't think he's I mean, he can stay in the hip pocket wide receivers. He can, win some 50-50 balls.
Hmm.
But I mean, I only watched very short film of him, but is he going to be good enough to bring down the bigger guys, the Metcalfs, the George Kittles of the NFC West, and whoever is playing tight end for the Rams?
Yeah. Yeah. He's saying that McDuffie's so much better than Byron was.
Byron's career was stunted. That's an
Mhm.
asterisk. We're moving on.
I mean, here's Byron was the first pick in the second round, and McDuffie's going to go first out of the first round. So McDuffie is a better prospect, it seems. I think Byron Murphy's good, and he's going to continue to develop. And McDuffie might be better, but that's not a slight on Murphy. I don't. You might disagree, and that's okay. I mean, we'll have to see how it plays out, right?
Right.
But
I'm just tired of the Washington corners being in Arizona.
we do have an affinity for them. Lance, I love that we're all staying positive and hopeful for next season. We're so close to steamrolling into the playoffs. Injuries really hindered production synergy.
Play calling too.
Yeah, but listen, I know there's people have been really down on the lack of activity this preseason, but I think sometimes we forget that when this roster was healthy, this team was like 7-0, right? And I know some things broke down at the end, but like you lost DeAndre Hopkins, you lost JJ Watt, you missed Rodney Hudson for a while, and you lost your arguably number one quarterback in Alford. So like a lot of key players went down, but like this roster is a good roster as much as maybe we didn't sign the players people wanted, right? But I think there's reason to be optimistic despite all the pessimism. Real quick, let me say to some of the folks that have jumped in here. Stacey Jean, thank you for being here. Cornerback, yeah, I think that seems to be probably the one most people agree with there. Real quick, Calvin, thank you for being here, channel member, great supporter of the channel, and I always remember the first super chat ever when I got monetized as Calvin. I'll never forget that. So thank you. What do you guys covet most, free agent or the draft, and why? So free agents. So are you asking which do we enjoy the most? What, or is there what
from a team building standpoint?
I think. Yeah, I don't know, Calvin, and clarify for us if you're asking about if it's a particular player or which do we enjoy more. Or
I got an answer for that one.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. We'll get the answer going, and if he takes us a different direction, we'll adjust. We'll pivot.
Yeah. I've always been a free agency guy.
Okay.
I've always been a fan of you can go out, you know what you need, you pay for that, and hopefully it works. I mean, that's why, kind of cross sports here, but that's why when I thought LeBron went to the Heat and formed the big three, I thought that was like the most perfect validation. Of course, it took him a while to win the titles, but I think it's free agency just because, look what happened to teams that need it. Packers almost had a dynasty in the 90s off of Reggie White, and you can go down the list of other impactful free agent signings. And that's what the Cardinals have been for quite some time since 2015. Or especially in the last 3 years, I should say. They've just been a couple free agents each year from really competing. And because the draft doesn't matter in Arizona because Steve Keim just whiffs. And I know shooters shoot, and you can't get out of a cold streak unless you continue to shoot, like we talked about. But I would go free agent over the draft any day.
I'm definitely on the other side of the fence from you. I friggin' love the draft. I have loved the draft since the 90s. Early 90s, I started watching the draft religiously because I'm old. I started watching it like early 90s all the way through. I call it my sports Christmas. My friends who know me close know that I love it this much. And I absolutely nerd out on the draft. And I think that is actually where you get more value because if you get it right, which I know is a big if right now, I think when free agency, you have a chance to turn around your fortunes and you can get big splash signings and you know what you're getting for the most part. But, they're proven in a sense. But you do, if you get the draft right, you get better value, especially with the rookie contracts. But like I'm much more of the mind that what you do is you draft, you get the draft right, Kurt Warner. Yeah. Listen, that doesn't mean I'm not for free agency.
No, I'm just replying to a comment.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. But like, I'm much more into the draft, and I like to supplement your needs with free agency. You patch holes for free agency and you build your roster with the draft is how I look at it. But that we've got different opinions. That's okay. Real quick, let me say hey to some of the folks that popped in here. I try to acknowledge everyone at least once who's here. Let's see. There are a couple. Niner Sickness, my buddy Beto's here. Appreciate you being here, Beto.
Nice.
Yeah, Beto's a really good dude. Hey guys, Debo Simon's on the trading block, but a team who trades for him also has to take Jimmy G. Right? It's a package deal. I know that there a lot of Niners fans want to unload Jimmy G, and it hasn't happened. And another Niners. I was talking about this earlier. Another Niners content creator messaged me that he's pulling a Kyler. So listen, good luck to you guys on the Debo Samuel front. Real quick, RM. Kyler Gordon's better fit for sure. So he likes Kyler Gordon as a cornerback. He's he might be more of a day 2 guy potentially. So RM, thanks for being here. Let me see. Make sure I get
underscore. Leave the chat.
What's that?
Chat. Underscore should just leave the chat. That's such a terrible take.
Oh, we don't get to the Super Bowl, but he's LOLing it, so he knows. But so if we draft well, raise up the system through the draft. Draft is a lot more fun from fan perspective. I think she's very important and a huge reason why we haven't won anything. We don't sign people in free agency, then we rely on kind of terrible picks. I think we've talked about this a lot. If you look at the best teams in the league that with long-term success, the Patriots, the Ravens, the Steelers, the teams that have long sustained solid teams, those teams are not the biggest spenders in free agency. That once in a while they will sign one, but they draft well, which we need to fix, no doubt. And then they get they usually patch holes or get value free agents. Sometimes they spend big, but those teams, you look at how those teams do it, and they don't do it through free agency, but it takes a little bit of both. But again, that's one of the fun things about this though, right? Because like we get to debate this, and yes, Jordan, I knew this was coming. Best team can draft. We've talked about this before. Keim has struggled in the draft, but I actually think he's a good talent evaluator. He worked his way up through the scouting department, and I think they've screwed up some of the players that they've drafted by playing them out of positions. I think changing coaches 3 years, like we talked about this, goes back to the Steve Wilkes. You went through 3 coaching regimes in 3 years, switched to a 4-3, and then back to a 3-4. Players that stunts the growth of players. Sometimes players are jettisoned because they're not a fit for the new scheme. They're drafted. I think some of the draft, the struggles we have with draft is part that. I know people will disagree. But regardless, my take is you can't punt on drafting. And Aarron referenced something we said before, like it's like being a shooter in basketball. You don't get out of a shooting slump without shooting, and they have to keep drafting until they get it right. And if they can't ever get it right, there is a point where Keim does have to go, right?
But also in that defense, though, it's been 10 years.
Well, he's had some good drafts, though. Like there was a stretch of about 5 to 7 years that was bad, but he actually had some good drafts before, and recently they've been a little bit better. But within that stretch was that period of kind of upheaval. So, but here's the deal. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to see, because we've got the coach and the GM under long-term contracts, and there's going to be stability now in that situation. So over the next 3, 4, 5 seasons, either he's going to get it right because they're drafting for the same system, and there's not going to be that excuse of, the upheaval. And if he doesn't get it right, then clearly he doesn't got it. But we'll see, right? Let's see. Got a lot of folks in here long-term. Let's see. Sorry. Granted, yeah, I'm all about the draft. It's all about player development. We'll test if you have a good front office and coaching to have the eye to find talent, develop them. And I think they have struggled with developing, right? So yeah. Let's see. Is there any? I want to make sure we hit on any questions. Let's see. Interesting question switch. What do we think about Zaven this year, and how do you guys think he will fare as a starter? That's a good question, Jordan. Thanks for taking us in a direction that isn't Steve Keim. What do you think, Aarron? What do you mean? What are your thoughts and expectations for Zaven Collins this year?
Well, he definitely had flashes last year. I mean, and especially the week 2 of the preseason when they played the Chiefs. I mean, there was one play he, thanks to the D line in front of him, just like, holy crap, who was that? And he laid a big hit. He was also responsible for, I think, one of Ezekiel Elliott's fumbles during the Dallas game, or Dak's fumbles, whatever it was. So the potential is there. It's just that, Cardinals rookies, they don't get to play until their second year unless you're Kyler Murray. So there's still going to be growing pains. Let's be ready for it. He's probably going to let up, 2-3 touchdowns. But I think, he can be the run supporter or the run stopper that we've drafted and made to be. And that way Isaiah Simmons can go and be more of a coverage linebacker, dare I say Tampa 2-ish off of that as well.
Yeah, I'm very bullish on what I think Zaven Collins is going to do, because I paid when he played and he was on the field. I paid close attention. I watched. I did a video where I kind of looked at what went on with him. And when he was on the field, he actually graded pretty well and looked pretty good. He had a few plays here and there that weren't rookie plays, but he played well in limited snaps. Then he got banged up, had like a shoulder injury, missed a little bit of time, and just really struggled to kind of get back into the flow of things after that. But like, he looked good in stretches. And that's what in a rookie, if they don't stop it, if they don't, pop and really hit from the beginning, what you at least want to see is flashes of what they can be when they become more consistent. And I thought I saw that. So I think what he just needs is that playing time, and I think he's going to be really good. So I'm also pretty optimistic on him. A couple other comments. Why don't they draft Sauce Gardner from Sauce Gardner? Well, we're honored to have Sauce Gardner, but no. Why they won't draft him? He won't be there at 23. That's why.
Yeah, he ain't falling.
Yeah. Let's see. He had a nice pass play, kept crucial down against Minnesota, I think. Yeah. So Collins showed some potential, right? So I agree. So let's see. I think we're just about getting close to the hour. So we'll maybe take one or two more questions before we get out of here. Would either of you trade number 23 for DK Metcalf? You would.
Yes.
Like yesterday. Okay.
Yes, I would do it. First round draft picks, like I said, they don't work out in Arizona. Go get somebody that should have been a Cardinal instead of Andy Isabella, who was Metcalf was still on the board. Case closed.
Yeah. Can we just throw Andy Isabella into the trade just out of principle? Like,
consolation prize.
Well, listen, I know you're not asking for him. You're willing to trade.
This
DK
is the hero you need.
But we just want to listen. I know you'll take the 23 by itself for DK, but we want to give you Andy just out of to closure. Would I? Okay, I have to check my own biases on this, because I am just not a fan of trading away first round picks. I love drafting, unless you're trading back to get more picks, because I love the draft, right? I'm just not a big fan of that. I loved the second round pick for Hopkins because you just can't beat that. But I think I'd have to consider that one, because he is a really good receiver. He's a big receiver. So maybe I could do that. I think I would be open to that as much. And my only hesitation is because I don't like trading picks like that. But, and then, underscore says problem Seattle is going to want more, and they might. And, so that would, that's that. I would trade more than that.
They took a lot less to trade Russell Wilson. So imagine what they're going to do for Metcalf.
Yeah, right. Sly, thanks for being here. How many else before we consider tanking for a draft pick? I mean, I think
we're not in that talk yet.
We're not in that. I'm not really into. I mean, tanking is kind of a little bit of a polarizing issue. I don't believe players ever tank and coaches ever tank because they want their job. The closest thing that happens to tanking in the NFL, in my opinion, is that teams, if they know they don't have a chance to win, they don't build a roster. they kind of tank through by not, like look at what Seattle's doing. Like Drew Lock might be their starting quarterback, right?
That's bad.
That's an organizational tank without really tanking, if that makes sense. If they don't have another quarterback, they're rebuilding, right? Real quick, I think we'll hit probably, and Lance makes a good point. They're not going to trade within conference likely, right? Anyway, but
no.
Real quick, I want to say hey to Teddy, TCR, what do you think? Rather than hiring Cliff, hire Chris Peterson. I mean, I don't know enough about Chris Peterson, so I don't know.
I'm trying to figure out who that is.
Yeah, I mean, we hired Cliff. That's who we got. We're tied to him, so I don't know that I have. I'm really not into that guessing game, but I did want to say hey to Teddy. So I think we'll go with this last question. I think this is a good question to end on. Is Rondale Moore expectations? So let's give our thoughts on that, and then we'll probably wrap it up with that. What are you thinking and expecting for Rondale Moore?
I'm expecting more design plays. There were definitely early in the season, week 1, 2, even a little bit of the Jacksonville game, where he was supposed to get the ball, and for the first 2 games he did, and then classic Cardinal rookie thing happened. They just stopped using him. And even when I went to the game in Chicago, I was just screaming, like, you've got to start using Rondale. I mean, they were still moving the ball pretty good, but you have to make sure that the defense knows he's a threat and actually get him the ball. Mm-hmm. And so if we're looking for if you're looking for a statistical number, I would say, I can't remember how many yards he had last year, but I would think like maybe if you could get him close to like 600 yards and 4 to 6 touchdowns, I would say that's a good year 2 to start, and then maybe goes into kind of like more legacy. You said in the next year, then he really goes into that true wide receiver 2 status.
Yeah. And, and the unfortunate thing was so much of his stuff was behind or at the line of scrimmage, and he's good in that. I mean, he's the guy you want taking those jet sweeps, and you want the jet sweeps and you want the screen passes going to Rondale Moore. He is the most elusive guy in that role, but you don't want that to be all he's doing, right? You want to see him out in the intermediate and occasional deep routes. I think I'm people know I'm a big fan of the talent. For me, the only question Rondale Moore is, can he stay healthy? But I think with Christian Kirk gone, Rondale Moore is going to get a lot of those routes and looks, that Christian Kirk used to get, right? So I think we're going to see more from him as long as he doesn't get injured. And I'm excited to see what he does. He's so elusive, and so just the talent is there. And one thing I really liked from him last year, I saw some heads up plays from him in the limited amount he played. Like, I don't know if you remember, there was the play, I think it might have been against Minnesota, where he caught the ball and they were getting close to the halftime, and he ran out of bounds and set up, and he timed it just right, eluded a couple guys, then went out of bounds,
62-yarder, and
set up that field goal. So I think he has the potential to be really good. I think 600 yards, if he's healthy, I think that's the floor. I think, if he's healthy, and I think we could see 800-900 yards if he, so. But of course, let me real quick say, Daryl Gray, thanks for being here. Sauce Gardner, saying a lot of things in here. But of course, we know, as long as we get Matt Ariza, I don't know about the first round pick, but maybe.
No, he's not Ray Guy talent, but who actually was a first round pick.
I thought here real quick, Rondale Moore made Christian Kirk expendable, nice comp pick. Arizona will he's the guy who's going to step into those shoes. That's one of the reasons the Christian Kirk loss isn't as big of a deal, right? And we'll get a 3rd round pick, right? So
that's a steal. We'll take
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So, all right, we've gone all over the board. We weren't sure what we were going to talk about, but I'm actually glad we didn't have to spend all day talking about the negative, stuff, the stuff in the news
It's much more dynamic than we know.
Yes. There's a lot more to that, and it will play out. But I want to thank everyone for being here, being part of the conversation, helping us, just enjoy talking Cardinals, as we talked about, sorry. And on the horizon note, I'm out. Yeah. So, I know, Aarron and I both appreciate getting to hang out with you guys and talking Cardinals. Again, for two guys who love the Cardinals but don't live in a place with Cardinals fans around, it's definitely something we enjoy. So thank you, everyone, for being here. Make sure on your way out before you go hit the like button. That definitely helps the channel.
Join that Discord too.
Yes, join the Discord. We got Aarron in there. We got Kyler in there. We got folks in there. And
look at that last comment over there.
Ooh, hey, listen. Wow. Well, I appreciate the compliment.
Then share this thing. Get more people here.
Yeah, please. If you haven't, the Discord reached 100 people. We I think it was today or yesterday, we got our 100th person. So the Discord is growing. There's a nice community in there. We talk in there all the time. It's a good active group. Yeah, help share the video, share the channel. We're real excited and if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Excited to get into the draft. We're going to be doing some stuff as we get closer to the draft. Anything I'm forgetting, Aarron?
I don't think so. We've done all the things.
I need to get a sweet sponsor. Actually, I might be working on a sponsorship, like not Manscaped, but I'll tell you, I need to meet with them, but I've actually got some friends who have a coffee roastery here in town. They are friends of mine. It's the coffee we drink every morning. And I think I might be doing sort of a partnership program with them. We've met. They're setting it up.
You too can be energized like TCR with this coffee.
With it's Cafe Campesino coffee. So I still need to meet with them and get all they're setting up their program. But I reached out to them because I thought well, who would I want to sponsor this? I don't want to shill for some company I don't really believe in or care about. But it's a coffee shop owned by friends of mine, and we brew their coffee every morning. So that's probably what I'll be getting. So I might be getting a sponsor soon. We'll see. What do I teach? Real quick question. I teach sociology. I'm a sociology professor. So yeah. Hey, folks, coffee ads coming soon from TCR. But I'll tell you what. Best coffee in the world, and coffee I would promote even if I weren't getting paid. Hey, Mr. Mono, take excuse by coffee. Yeah, I teach sociology at the university level, so football is kind of actually my outlet to get away from that sometimes. But make sure you're following _AVB Sports at Twitter.
It'll be going more.
Yeah, make sure. And if you were following Aarron before on Twitter, this is a new handle, so make sure you get to this you follow him on his sports handle, the new one, _AVB Sports. Kyler Burd wasn't able to be here with us, but his information is below. Make sure you're following him. I think we mentioned earlier he had one of his videos reached 1,000 views for the first time on his channel, so that's real exciting for him. And Teddy still wants to jam with me, so one of these days, right? Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're going to end on that. Aarron, any final words before we head out?
No, just I guess just sit tight for any Cardinals news, because you never know with Keim, could pull a trade at any moment. And when it comes to the draft, just have a plan, be smart, don't drive drunk, don't do anything stupid, and go Cardinals.
Awesome. Great words. All right. Well, we're gonna put up the channel members, the shout out that I always like to put up at the end, just to thank those folks who help support the channel. A lot of them were in the chat today, so I'm gonna put that up, and then we'll end on that. So everyone, peace. Have a good night.